see, we're using the Q&A functionality just to connect, have a chat, and the chat functionality just to chat, and the Q&A functionality to ask any questions, which we'll get to at the end. Everyone is on mute apart from our speakers, so you know, so please do feel free to use the chat and the Q&A functionality. And the session is being recorded. We've had a number of people this morning who are unable to make it, so needing that recording, so that's great. But thank you for joining real time as well. And without further ado, I will hand over to Janine, and I'll put myself on mute. Guys, if you need me, I'm right here.
Thank you, Krista. Good morning, everybody. Krista hasn't changed shape. She's not Alistair Sargent, our Chief Exec. Unfortunately, Alistair's not well enough to join us today, but you've got Donald and I, and I'm going to do a proper introduction to Donald a little bit later on as we go through. So, yeah, hi, I'm Janine. I'm one of the exec consultants at Equantis. My role is really to help support our higher education clients to try and do two things, really, to try and be more operationally efficient and to try and improve the student experience, which are going to be two key topics as we go through today. And as I say, I'll introduce Donald properly as we go through. Director of Change and Transformation. No longer acting, Donald, you're fully fledged now.
I am.
Role.
Congratulations. Yes, it's the 1st of May.
And he's joining us from the University of East London. UEL are one of our clients that we've been working with for just over a year now, and who've gone for a really exciting journey with RPA. So I know you're going to really want to hear directly from Donald about how that's gone, and good, bad and indifferent, I guess. So the context of today really is to start delving a bit deeper. Hopefully many of you were able to join us for an event that we held a couple of months ago, which was chaired by Aaron Powell from UCAS, where Donald and a number of other universities started to have this conversation with us about digital transformation. And so Donald got the lucky, I think, position of being first up with our mini-series to follow that larger event. If you did miss that event, the recording's still on our website, and we'll make sure that we flag that to you after the session today. So what we were looking to do really was start this conversation up around both digital transformation and what it means to different institutes throughout the UK, and think about this idea of reimagining the nature, I guess, what's happening. So, we talked a little bit about what's new in higher education, of course, what the impact of COVID has been on the HE sector, but also how digital transformation is really a key topic, at least for many organisations, and what the different approaches and challenges have been. And really the aims are to really, first and foremost, deliver that true student-centric service, and I think as we go through, we'll hear some common themes and topics coming up around why that potentially isn't currently possible, or certainly not end-to-end throughout the whole of the institute. Another key theme really for us today is going to be talking about adopting a digital approach across the whole organisation. So what we often find is that there's pockets of good stuff happening in particular business functions or departments or areas of university, or perhaps where new people have joined and they've got some experience from a previous role. But I think one of the harder things we found came very much out from our previous event was around trying to get this whole organisation sense of digital transformation. And again, there are reasons for that happening around parts of the organisation lagging behind, and why that can be problematic. And whilst we might have pockets of the institute where we've got great technology, the kind of magic triangle of people, process and technology is not necessarily always the case either. And we're going to unpack a little bit as we go through the importance of having, of looking at each of those areas and how they're interlinked. So why did we think this was a good topic for today? Well, in our previous event, we did a poll live in the event, and we asked the question, are you actively looking at automation tools to improve your student experience? And overwhelmingly, we had a good majority saying, yeah, it's a key digital enabler for us. We're looking at it right now, which was fantastic to hear. And then another 27% saying, well, we'd like to, but we're not quite sure where to start. And I think it's probably fair to say, Donald, just over a year ago, that's probably where UEL were. You're looking to do it, but not quite sure where to start.
I would say that's exactly the case, actually, Janine, that automation was something we wanted to bring in as part of our full digital transformation program. We would certainly be doing that in other bits I'll talk around this morning in terms of our CRM system and website, but actually using robots was something that we knew was out there, but didn't really know what to do to take it forward from there.
Great, and I think it's really good to hear you say that, Donald, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of people joining us this morning or listening to this recording thinking, yeah, I've heard about this stuff, I've seen what others are doing, but I just don't know how to get on board with it. And one of the reasons why we're really happy to have you with us today is to show this, real life experience. And I know you're going to tell us it all, Donald, not just the good bits, the challenging bits as well.
I will.
Okay. I'm going to hold you to that now. So in this session today, yeah, we're going to, really focus on the challenges of rapid shift to a digital first model. So, what you can do to really move forward now and start to think about how to do this thing with the aim of aligning student experience and digital technology. And the good news is there's really lots of tools and techniques to help you do that and to align that student journey to a digital enabler, but not necessarily suggesting that you would need to embark on, a major change program or a complex IT project. I'm working with another higher education institute at the moment who are just approaching year 4 of their student records management system implementation. So, we know that these projects have a huge time frame and a large cost to them as well. And one of the key benefits we're going to see from using intelligent automation today is speed and also recognizing those wins quickly. And I think the other thing that is going to be a common theme again today is shifting away from the IT department or the IT team being the driving force. I think what's lovely to hear, and another reason why it's so great to have Donald today, is because it's the business driving this change, not IT coming in saying, we've got this new bit of shiny idea to, kind of put onto you. It's the business saying, we know this stuff's possible, this is what we're trying to achieve, how can we do it?
Although I could jump in there, Janine, and say that I do actually work very, very closely with the head of applications in IT, so that we look at whether it's automation or trying to improve services with different bits of software very collaboratively, with academic registrar as well, deputy director of HR. So we're forming a group of sort of automation and process review champions across the institution to take forward things in a much more strategic fashion, rather than probably our approach last summer, I'd say, was ad hoc, like dipping your toe in the water. This is something new. What does it mean? Will it really deliver any benefits to us? Is it just the latest silver bullet that's out there, latest panacea that will help solve all our problems in the short run? But I think we learned a lot. We learned a lot just by doing that, and I'll come back to that in a minute.
Thanks, Donald. I think that's really important, and I like the 2 words that you used there around collaboration, but also champions as well, and coming together and being passionate about it. Because again, I was working with a client last year who showed me a new bit of kit, and I said, why have you got this kit? And they said, well, the IT team told us we should use it, and actually in practice it wasn't really achieving what they wanted to achieve. So yeah, I think, and we'll see this as we come on to some of the next slides around, you know, moving away from traditional IT approach. So I guess I wanted to just pause here for a second to say, well, you know, what is causing you, and what I guess gave you that impetus to begin with, Donald, to think, well, yeah, you know, we RPA is something that's out there, intelligent automation is on our radar. You know, why were you thinking about it in the first place? And that, you know, there are some common consistent challenges across the sector that we are hearing lots as being the driving force behind these changes. So I think, you know, we don't want to underestimate student expectation. In fact, if anything, over the last 18 months, COVID has put a real lens on that. I mean, even this week in the news, we're hearing again, you know, constant challenges from students, again, around, you know, payment of tuition fees with remote learning, and really demanding that return on their investment, probably more so than ever. And so, you know, the ability for institutes to need to be competitive, but also to prove that you can offer a good experience, is really at the forefront now, if it wasn't before. Again, the other common challenge is around legacy systems and siloed data. So, you know, lots of you, I'm sure, will be thinking about replacement technology, and we know that some of you are on that journey already, or at the very beginning of that journey, but others actually don't have that opportunity. You know, you are, I guess, stuck with what you've got, and it isn't always, certainly if it's on your radar, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, as we just heard. You know, minimum of sort of 12 to 18 months, I think, is what we see for most change outs of big systems. So one of the reasons why intelligent automation becomes a really good option for people is because it isn't a traditional kind of IT replacement project. The bot works with your existing infrastructure and your existing systems, and it looks at them and takes what it needs, and can actually move data between them as well, without having to look at you know, traditional technology integration. So I think the two key things there are speed, but also you know, a less traditional digital approach. And then I guess coming on to the, you know, the pace of digital change in terms of, you know, these tools are out there, they are quick, and linking into the next one around staying relevant, you know, your competitors will be looking at this, and they will be thinking about ways to be more operationally efficient and deliver that enhanced student experience. So you know, and the first words on this slide really one of the ones I want you to kind of take away, if nothing else, from this session today, around defining a digital strategy. And it really is that important preparation to think about what it is you're trying to achieve, and laying that out from the beginning, so you don't just get swept along with, okay, well, we can, so let's just do it. So I think what's interesting, again, things that we've seen over time, is this this digital first approach to transformation away from evolution, and many organizations, you know, we know, evolve into digital. So, you know, you might have a system that's at end of life, and you know, perhaps you've been in a position of waiting until it's necessary to do something. So this change happens more organically. So you've got a system, it comes to end of life, okay, you need to think about what the next thing is. And then we've got a kind of second bucket of people that we see who say, okay, well, we want to transition, we want to move, so we're going to specifically set up a digital project, and we're going to do something about it. And again, as I just said, you know, COVID may have been a driving force for some of you thinking about doing that or having to do that. For example, you've had to put your learning online, so you've had to create a digital project to work out how to do that. So you've transitioned. But rarely we find organisations who are going through true transformation because they're doing it as a whole organisation. And this phrase of digital by design is relevant here because you've decided that's what you want to do, and you have that digital strategy and that action plan of how to move forward. So we've got some subtle differences here, and I'm sure many of you listening to this will also think, yeah, this is, we're further to the left or the right on this scale at the moment, and perhaps you have a desire to move further towards the right. So I want to move on to think about the prep work before you go straight into creating bots. And again, I know when we hear from Donald, particularly last year, Donald, for your clearing event, you probably didn't have as much luxury of time as kind of doing some of this beforehand. And it may be that if you are taking perhaps a more cautious approach, you've got the time to do this, which is very much what we would recommend. So I think if you think about the driving force between around using intelligent automation, why are we trying to do it in the first place? So how do we make our student experience better, improved? The only way to improve something is to measure where you've started from. So mapping out your current student experience is a really useful tool. It's a very quick thing to do. It's a very easy thing that institutes can do to work out what the current experience is. And it may feel like an obvious thing to do, but I think once you really lift the bonnet up and see, what is going on underneath, it is very eye-opening and really brings those pain points to the forefront. The starting point is to create personas. I know many of you will have perhaps marketing personas that you've created before, where you've got kind of representative demographics of types of students. Great, if you've got them already, you can use them. If you haven't, again, they're a very easy and fairly quick exercise to create. We often find that people are very good at creating personas for kind of recognizable student groups that currently exist, but perhaps they don't always have personas that represent the types of students that they're trying to attract. So we would recommend that you have in your set of personas both current and aspirational student demographics in there. And why is that important? Well, for example, beyond this project, let's say you have a new course that you're looking to stand up, and you want to attract a certain student to it, or you are trying to market to students in a particular part of the world. If you've got a persona around those types of students, then others around the institute will be able to use those personas to amend their approach, their marketing, etc. Accordingly. But once we've got our personas created, we can then say, right, what's the experience that this student is having when they come to interact with us to do something? And so, in my example here, I have an engineering student who is undertaking a task called choosing classes for next semester. So they're going through their enrollment process, and what we've done is we've mapped out the emotional experience that they're having as they go through that activity. And I've got a kind of rainbow emotional graph in the middle there, so you can see kind of the experience starts off quite well, but falls away towards the middle, and then marginally improves at the end. And then what we can do is start to say, well, are there any positive elements about this experience, because we should exploit that, do more of it, celebrate it. But are there any pitfalls? So where's that experience falling down, and why is it falling down? So are they looking at something on your website and they can't find where they want to go, or they're having to speak to someone in person, or do they have to email in to get an answer? And then we can start to think about the underpinning processes that either enable or disable that experience. Once we've pinpointed those particular areas, we can start to understand what the internal view, the operational experience is like for our staff. So really, it's a practical approach about getting everybody involved, staff, stakeholders. I see mapping is quite a good technique for processes that you may have with third parties as well, like agents, for example. So you can really understand, what is currently happening. And actually, I think we find when we walk the walk and put ourselves in those students' shoes, it's actually quite eye-opening. So the types of things that you might want to create a student experience map might be around, prompting them to register or enrolment, as we saw there, or perhaps completing registration. There would be some common experiences that I think you would get a lot from. And then flipping that on its head, what is currently happening to enable that experience? So what's happening now? Who does what and when? So what are our staff doing to enable that experience? So it is a discovery process. Well, again, what's happening now and what's the opportunity to improve? What processes do we have? What outcomes are they trying to achieve? What tools and systems are we currently using? Do we have documented processes, or does everybody keep it in their head, or ask that really experienced person that sits next to us? How complex is the process? Does it have a lot of steps? Are there a lot of decision points? Are there particular scenarios that cause the process to be different? How valuable is it to your organisation, this process? Does it help you achieve your strategic aims? Might help you answer the question of, should we stop doing some things? What this does, it gives us a view of the possible. So, is it possible to improve the processes within this business function? And are there any technology or automation opportunities to make it better? So again, what we're doing here is we're looking at what's possible. We've got an existing way of doing things. What does that look like? How useful is it? How successful is it? And could it be better? And what's our current external view from our students' point of view, when they undertake a particular task or activity with us? And what that does is it enables you to have a ranking, because we know that it's not always possible to just do everything at once. So in my example that I've got here, we've looked at the opportunity to improve processes, and actually the registry function is coming up highest in terms of the opportunity to improve it, or to automate it, or use technology more effectively. And it has a higher score than graduates and alumni. And so, if we've got time to do one thing, where should we spend that time right now? There are improvements to be made in graduates and alumni, but actually registry might be the best place for us to spend our time and attention right now. So to join that up, to look at the external and the internal, we're recommending that you start with that student experience, so what happens right now, and the process discovery, so what are we doing right now, and to give us an experience improvement strategy. So taking the recommendations from those two pieces of work to say, this is our current state, what do we want our future state to look like? And at the end of that short exercise, you should have recommendations that fit really into three buckets. So where can we just improve the process today, without any technology changes, without any process changes? If we were to just do something very quickly, if we were to just say, right, let's keep everything on SharePoint instead of emailing it around, that would improve the process. Things that are really within our gift. Where can we change or align our existing or new technology? So we may know that we've got new technology coming in, or we may have a system that we're just not using as effectively as we could do. And again, we find many examples where our customers have technology in place already, but they don't know that it's capable of doing something. Or we find one area of the institute is using the system in one way and another area doesn't know that it's possible to use it in that way. So sharing and exploiting existing technology, or looking to make recommendations to change technology. And then finally, we've got recommendations around using intelligent automation, which is what we're going to come on to talk about in more detail now. So let's start with some definitions. What is intelligent automation? So the main component here that we're going to use is RPA, so robotic process automation. And intelligent automation is all around us all the time anyway. You know, if you've got a smartphone, it's already in action. If you've got an Alexa, or you use Siri, or you've got Google Home, you know, it's all around us all the time. And what we're talking about here is putting it into our business context in higher education. So RPA is essentially a computer program, or you might hear us refer to it as a bot or a robot. And what that bot does is mimics human performance, particularly around the repetitive rule-based tasks that our staff undertake. And what's great about the bot is the bot doesn't have to belong to a particular department or just use a particular type of software. It can work across departments, across software, and it can make decisions based on what we train it to do. And again, as we said earlier, it's simple to deploy and it doesn't require the more complex IT integrations that other projects may. And just like a human, it can do things that humans can do. It can log into a system, it can open an email, monitor a folder, perform queries, extract data. It can move data from one place to another. It can copy, paste, it can complete forms, it can follow specific rules, and it can keep your records maintained. So why should we have bots? What we often refer to them is digital labour to support and complement our human labour. Well, bots are faster and more accurate. They don't go to sleep, they don't take holidays, they work at weekends and in the evening. So if we've got processes that will enable a student experience when we're not open, there's some common ones there around student inquiry management. You know, if a student is asking for something at a weekend or in the evening when staff have gone home, a bot could take those tasks on. Ultimately, we're looking at, you know, a better student experience because they don't have to wait, improved efficiency, increased compliance as well, and happier and more productive employees because we're taking away the boring, repetitive tasks, the moving data from a spreadsheet, say, into a system, or copying and pasting things. And we're giving them time to do the value-added work that they don't have time to do because they're doing the boring stuff. So here's an example of a process that a bot could do. The bot itself could monitor a folder for a new invoice in perhaps PDF format or multiple formats, actually. The bot could then read the invoice, extract the necessary data from it, log in and enter it into a finance system, and send an email confirmation at the end. So this is a typical invoice processing process that a bot could take away from a human so they can do more value-added things. So before we hear from a successful implementation, I just wanted to pause to say, you know, we have spent time with our clients to really understand what makes these types of projects a success. And I know Donald's going to come on to talk about them now. You know, having related projects on the radar is a really important thing to do from the beginning. If you're going to undertake RPA, it's still a project. Yes, it's not as lengthy as a new technology or implementation project, but there's still potentially things that could you know, cause pinch points. Product ownership is really important because, yes, we might want the bot in our previous example there to look at a folder and then look at the finance system, but we need to understand, you know, who's got ownership of the finance system and how does that data need to be entered and why is it important. We're not suggesting that we bring in robots and they take over the world and all of our staff can kind of rest up. They still need to be involved in the project and we need to get them on board. And I know this is something Donald's quite passionate around in terms of change management and making sure that we've got them, you know, that on the radar. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Donald to introduce himself, and then I guess I've got a series of questions for you, Donald, to get the most out of your juicy experience here. So yeah, I'll just give you a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll come on and look at UEL's experience in a bit more detail.
Thanks very much, Janine, and welcome everyone to Digital Tools Technology Transformation Central in North Hertfordshire, i.e. my back bedroom, where we've been delivering digital transformation since lockdown 1 in March 2020. So I've been at UEL now for just over 2 years and was brought in to initially help with some early digital transformation projects around web and CRM, and that moved then on to exploring the whole area around automation. And Qantas contacted me probably, I think it was around May or June of last year, and we had quite a few conversations around opportunities that were there. And I think when Janine starts asking me some questions, I'll be able to tell you about our experience, certainly the speed to which we implemented things, challenges that we had, and a lot of the time that's more internal as much as anything else, in terms of people buying into what you're doing and understanding their roles, responsibilities, and accountability within those particular processes if you want to get them done quickly. And also then the outputs from the pilot that we ran last year and where that's got us to today.
Wonderful.
Back to Janine now.
Thank you, Donald. Yeah, that's a great intro, and again, thank you very much for being with us today and sharing this experience. So I think we wanted to start off by saying, could you give us a bit of an overview of how UEL is transforming and what transformation means to you? How have you interpreted that word, I guess?
Yeah, okay. You were quoting earlier, Janine, just the speed of change that's happened over particularly the last 18 months. And I saw a really good article 2 or 3 weeks ago from Martha Lane Fox that was on BBC News, where she'd been interviewed. For those of you that don't know who she was one of the co-creators of lastminute.com back in the 1990s, was the chief digital guru for, I think, 3 governments as well, and now sits as a crossbencher in the House of Lords. So she's well up with what's going on. And she made some really, really valid points. The first one was she believes that there's been 5 years worth of change in the last 18 months. So the speed of change is phenomenal. Sometimes that has to be a necessity as much as anything. And for universities, we had to move our teaching online, although some of us may have delivered distance learning courses, etc. We had to deliver enrollment online. And I suspect that was a very interesting process for a lot of people, where we were trying to implement really manual paper-based processes involving human face-to-face contact digitally, and try and do that very, very quickly. And rather than having big queues around buildings, I think we probably have big digital queues within our organizations, which mean we probably needed to take a good step back afterwards and look at those systems and processes and look at the training, development and support that staff had to get them through that. The other point that Martha Lane Fox meant was around momentum of change, which was that it's not going to slow down in the short term, and it's likely probably to speed up and not deviate from that. So basically you need to get on the journey now, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. Your competitors will overtake you, and your staff will be left doing a lot of processes and a lot of work which really is not very fulfilling for themselves. It doesn't deliver you good customer service moving forward, and actually it makes people's jobs pretty boring as well if you're doing things, and can cost you an absolute fortune at certain times of the year, where you have to bring in large numbers of temporary staff to help get through those peak periods. So from a UEL perspective, what does digital transformation mean? Well, digital first is one of our key facilitating projects. So it's really at the heart of everything that we do. It's not just about an isolated set of projects. It's a strategic approach to change very much. So our vision as an institution is to be pioneers for future careers and sustainable innovation in a changing world. And our vision for digital transformation is to facilitate the delivery of that vision by providing services to support the student journey, i.e. customer service as much as anything and customer experience, but also the pedagogy and the way that we teach people and supporting through digital innovation. So we're about 2 years into the programme, and probably like many other people, when we got into lockdown 1, some of those programmes had to be put on hold or stopped completely. UEL made a strategic decision to go forward with 3 key projects. 2 of those I was heavily involved with and still am. One was the cloud project, which I wasn't, so that's just transferring as many of our systems onto the cloud as we can get, so that we get stability, resilience, etc., and sort of cut back on the number of servers and power and sustainability that we and build on sustainability within our own environment. But we also continued with the redevelopment of our website, so moving from a Sitecore site that we currently have to Drupal. But the project that did deliver most quickly during that period was a whole new instance of Microsoft Dynamics 365. That was delivered. We've moved to Teams in about October, November 2019. So actually, as we moved to lockdown, it showed you could deliver digital transformation and project work very easily, particularly when it's technically led. And obviously the project we did with the Qantas last year was completely ran remotely. So you don't need people face to face, but you do need them to engage. If they don't engage, they can't just come on the screen and hide behind a blurred screen or an image or something like that, or start dealing with their emails. They have to actually focus fully on what's going on there. So in terms of digital transformation, what does it mean for me personally? I think it's really about those key elements that Junie mentioned earlier: people, process, technology. If you don't consider all 3 within there, and you do, as some places have done, and many places are guilty of this, they just bring some technology in and slap an old process on top of that, which can actually have a more detrimental effect to both the efficiency of the business and also customer service as well within there. So we have to think about all 3 of those at once when we're taking things forward. And we actually ran a workshop the other day just to ask, do we think one of these is more important than the other? And my view is no, they can't. They all work in tandem, but probably what often isn't mentioned within there, if you want to get things done properly and quickly, the quality of your data also has to be strong. And if you've got poor quality data, this can really impact on transformation. It really slows things down. So when you're considering doing any sorts of projects, such as bringing in robots, etc., do consider what the data quality is like, first of all, because you'll find there's an awful lot of exception reporting otherwise that you may not have expected to see before you started.
I love the idea of that workshop, Donald, of getting everyone together and yeah, ask the question, what's most important.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, like, specifically, what pain were you having? What problem were you trying to solve when we started working together in terms of RPA last year? What was causing the issue to make you think, yeah, a bot could help us here?
Well, for UEL, clearing is a very busy and important time of the year, and we get an awful lot of direct applications coming in. Each one of those applications has to be manually input into our student record system, which was taking about 15 minutes per application to input. Because of the quantity of these applications, we were using temps to do that work, and obviously that impacted on data quality because people were trying to get them in as quickly as possible and pass them over to UCAS, so they got into the system and the offers could go out effectively. So what we had was, I mean, it wasn't so much about, in this case, reworking the process, because the process was fixed for us in that way through the UCAS process, but it was about how do we make things more efficient in terms of customer service, how do we save money, and how do we improve data quality.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And could you just, I mean, I know we've got our video of the bot to show a bit later on, but could you just explain a little bit about how our bot, which is called Niico, helped you resolve the issues that you're experiencing? So you talked about, you know, bringing in temps and data accuracy and things. So what is it that the bot's actually, you know, actually helped you to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, what it helped us achieve, and when you see the video, it's amazing. That we went from discussing things, going through our procurement department, legal department, etc., to implementing within 10 days. And what we solved was actually having to manually input those direct applications. So we went through a very quick process review in terms of so Qantas could understand what we were actually doing. Probably the key thing here, as we've just done again this time, is for them to video someone manually inputting an application so that it records the various keystrokes, and that's what the robot will then do. The robot will then replicate what a human being would do over and over again, probably 1 in 5 incorrectly as well. So obviously we needed to make sure that the keystrokes were accurate at that time.
That's brilliant, thank you. And I think it's really good to, and again, like, I know I'm teasing this about this video now, but again, I think what we really wanted to do today was just like demystify it and say, you know, exactly, you know, what does a robot actually do? And you've used the key phrase there, Donald. You know, it mimics human behaviour so that it can do that heavy lifting. So I think it's really interesting to hear you explain it like that. So you've already said the implementation, you stood it up really, really quickly. It took about 10 days. What human investment was needed? So was it just a case of, you know, right, brilliant, we'll stand this bot up and the bot can kind of go on? How did you get the teams together, and did that pose any challenges for you?
I started talking as soon as we'd had the conversations with our IT department, and at that time admissions was separate to external relations, but they're now within it, and we basically just brought them all together into a room and explained what we wanted to do and how we needed to go about this. And obviously there are major benefits to the admissions office running the clearing process, as it would reduce, if this worked properly, it would have reduced the number of temporary staff, the amount of money they were paying for that staff, and actually improve the quality of the experience that we gave. I would say we did that very quickly. This year we've done it a little bit more slowly, so that we've run the full customer journey workshops and looked at the systems and processes in terms of audit and identifying the pain points. So I would say, in terms of, you would need the key stakeholders within those particular process areas. I would say 6 to 8 of them to work probably about 1 day in total to sit through possibly two different workshops, one looking at the customer journey, the other looking at the process. You would need someone who was competent to be recorded doing the keystrokes. I think that's about 2 hours work, something like that, depends on the complexity of the process that you're trying to replicate. And then IT services, try and get in touch with them as soon as possible, because they need to provide an environment in which for the robot to operate within, and they don't take too kindly to be asked to provide that overnight. So the Qantas will be able to tell you exactly what the requirements are. The sooner you can tell them what you need and book that ticket in, the better it will be for you, because we can get one part of the process up, but obviously we can't work it if we haven't got anywhere to site the bots. And then once it was launched, which was extremely painless, from my memory. We would then check the Qantas, and UEL would check in once every couple of days just to see how everything was going, if there are any issues, and whether we needed to tweak anything at all just to make it more efficient.
Brilliant. And I guess the big question really is, you know, what did it do for you, Donald? What were the, you know, did you reap those benefits immediately? What happened? Could you get rid of some of those temps? What were the benefits?
Yeah, well, the achievements were amazing in a very short period of time. So in 2019, we had about 1,000 direct applications, and we worked out that would take about 400 hours to process and put through. So we saved about £4,000 in temp costs immediately. Really, the real key thing is that we reduced the process time from 15 minutes to about between 1 minute and 90 seconds, something like that. And alongside that, we had 100% accuracy of data that was inputted, so no exception reports coming out of that. And for those permanent staff that would have still been involved, they were then freed up to deliver much higher quality levels of service to prospective students that were coming through, probably with more complex questions. Alongside that, what it also did, when we then celebrated what we'd achieved here back within the institution, was build a bit of momentum around automation. So we presented this alongside the work we've done with cloud telephony, the work we've done with re-energizing a chatbot as well, and the automation that we'd used through our new CRM implementation. So I termed it at the time sort of dipping our toe in the water in our first steps of automation. And what it enabled me to do was then build a more strategic approach and put that into the business plan that was just gone through this time, sort of March or April this year for automation within the university. So what we're looking at now, as there's a much broader full digital transformation program where we'll be looking to replace student record systems, finance systems, HR systems within the next few years, we'll be particularly looking at the interfaces between the current systems and see where we can deliver quick wins and value in the next couple of years on those systems while they're still in place and being replaced there. But what it also did was increase people's understanding of automation. There was already buy-in from the top of the organisation, which is important here, but to allay people's fears, this isn't about getting rid of jobs. This is about being more efficient and freeing people up to do more interesting work and higher value work within their organisation. So in effect, it's been a win-win. It's been a win for Qantas because they've got a good case study, and it's been a big win for me personally and UEL because we piloted something that was very successful that led on to a much more strategic approach to automation.
Brilliant, thanks, Donald. I think you've nicely whetted our appetite actually to see this in practice, because and I'm just gonna click play on this demo video here. It goes very, very quickly, and then it's going to slow down. Then I'm going to talk through it in a bit more detail. But I think what we often hear from people is, okay, this all sounds great, but you know, what is it you're talking about? What are bots? What do they look like? What are they going to do? What's that going to help? So I think hearing from you today, hopefully, has really broken that down into a bit more of a way of kind of managing the understanding. So what I'm playing here now on this video is the real-time recording of our bot in action, and because it's going real time, this is how quickly the bot is working. So as you can see from what Donald said in terms of the amount of time that was saved, you can see how quickly the bot can work versus, you know, how long it would take for a human to do exactly the same piece of work. And what we're showing you here is the current student record management system that UEL have sits. and also the UCAS system and the details. So let's slow it down and look at this at 50% speed, because that was very quick. And we've got some captions as well. So first of all, Niico, our bot, logs into the UCAS system and also the UEL system sits. So they have their own login, just like a human would. And here you could see the control room that the bot is being run from. So here's the bot logging in to UCAS, and then they are entering, and we've grayed them out to keep the data safe. They're entering the information from the SIT system, which the bot's just logging into now, again, just like a human would, and they're going to extract the information from that direct applicant and manually input it into the UCAS system. So here's the bot at half speed logging in to the UCAS portal. And then they're going into SITs and looking for accepted offers, lifting that data out of the SIT system, and then going back into the UCAS portal and entering that information into it. And so, Donald, I think what was really interesting is one of the things you'd had before was the data accuracy, and, you know, having temps and you know, any human will from time to time make a mistake. And I think one of the most impressive stats from your case study is, you know, 100% accurate data when using the bot, which is great. And obviously the other thing that the bot can do is that the bot won't get tired, the bot doesn't take a break, the bot is just happy to do record after record after record. And they get to the end and they submit and go on to the next application. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a window into actually seeing a bot live in action. That was the first recording was real time, and then we slowed it down just so you could see it in a little bit more detail. So as we come into the sort of closing part of our session today, let's just have a quick think about you know, where potentially bots could be used. So bots are best where you've got manual, repetitive, rule-based processes, and we just saw an excellent example of that there. It was manual, it was repetitive, so it was doing the same thing over and over again, and it was rules-based. So take this data from this system and put it into this system over here. You'll get the most benefit where you've got high transaction or high volumes going on. So as we heard from Donald, we'll talk about thousands of records in a very short space of time. Multiple systems or multiple data sources. Yep, again, you know, where you're putting data from one place to another, or where you've got several systems, you need to bring them all together and get data together. And another thing that is important is the structure of the data. So bots work best where the data is consistent and there are rules around it. So if you have a process where there's inconsistencies, it needs a human's brain to analyze it and make judgments that we wouldn't be able to teach the bot to do, then that's not going to be a good process for RPA. So here's some example good candidates just to get you thinking about what might be possible in your institute. You know, you might have processes around managing prospective student offers, processing enrollment data, capturing information, making assessments around scholarships or bursaries, processing things like transfers and changes, or responding to requests for something like a student transcript, for example. So these are all examples of candidate processes to think about whether RPA might be good for you, because you know they all share aspects of the elements in those yellow circles above. So as we come to the close of our session, you know, I think what we wanted to do today was really just to whet your appetite in terms of looking at the art of the possible, but also crucially seeing live an example of someone who's actually done this, who dipped, as Donald said, dipped their toe in the water, took the chance, held their breath and jumped off the edge and said, yeah, let's do this thing and see what benefits it can reap. And I think what's been wonderful was to hear Donald's closing summary there about just the potential that's unlocked and what that toe dipping is now allowing you to do. So I'm going to bring Krista back in. I know she's been keeping an eye on the chat in the background while we've been going through. I don't know if you've got any questions for us, Krista. I know we're just coming to the end of our time now.
Yes, we are. We had a couple for the Q&A just to me and then one on the chat. I think Donald partially answered it, but I'll just pose it to you as well, Janine. So I hear the terms intelligent automation and RPA used. Are they interchangeable or is there a subtle difference?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think you were definitely hearing that me use those phrases interchangeably. I mean, I guess intelligent automation it refers to anywhere where you're integrating robotics into different components of different types of technology, and RPA, or robotics process automation, is a type of intelligent automation. So you've got the robot mimicking, so becoming intelligent, mimicking the work that a human would do. So intelligent automation, I guess, is the kind of wraparound descriptor, and what we've been looking at here is specifically is where RPA, which is a type of intelligent automation, has helped a higher education institute to save some time and some money and some people's ability to be able to do much more exciting things.
Okay, great. And then to Donald, I had one that came to me for you. It sounds like a big challenge is the human part of these projects, the change management bit. What tips or advice can you give people thinking of undertaking transformation?
I think you need to get buy-in from the top of the organisation as a key starting point here, right at the top in terms of executive board and management board. Explain to them if they aren't engaged with it, first of all, really what it means. We've done things such as art of the possible workshops just to bring in key players there. Share any outcomes, share case studies, the benefits that can be accrued from delivering automation, whether it's within higher education or similar sectors, or probably large-scale organisations, that the benefits that will come both from smaller projects but also a more strategic approach. But it may be with all these sorts of things, don't start with a big bang, start with something small that's achievable. Find a partner that you feel comfortable to work with as well, that can help guide you through that process. But as I mentioned before, you need to ensure you, as well as having the buy-in at the top, you've got the other key stakeholders that will be involved within setting something up. So IT is going to be involved somewhere in there. So make sure they understand what their role is, that they're bought into it. If it's student records, then you're probably going to be talking to registry, and you need the registrar, academic registrar, bought into that. It's around compliance, etc. Get them bought into it, but spend time with them, talking it through, and probably I've brought in Equantis and other organisations to talk to people as well, just so you don't use technical language, use simple, clear language, so they know exactly what you're talking about. You're not trying to bamboozle them. It's not something that's like something to take over the world with. It's what we need to do moving forward, and it's just a reflection on where society is going and how that we can improve the service that we deliver to our different stakeholder groups, particularly prospective and current students.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. And then last one, is it possible to automate every process? How can you work out which ones are the best fit?
Yeah, it definitely the answer to that is no, it's not. It shouldn't. There are definitely processes that we don't want to automate, and they're not good candidates. And back to my previous slide, Krista, with those yellow bubbles. So good candidates will emerge, and I think and I know we're doing that with UEL now. Recently, we've been looking at potential candidates and looking at where the most benefit would come from, which processes will be easiest and most appropriate to automate. So they need think manual, repetitive, lots of rules. The data structured. There's high transactions. Sometimes high frequency potentially as well, although obviously clearing only happens at a particular time of the year, but because it is such a pinch point and there was such a high volume, it felt like a good candidate. But there may be other things around, if you've got multiple intakes happening throughout the year, for example, looking at your enrolment processes might be more appropriate, because the frequency is increased.
And what it will enable you to do is, if you identify that almost ring fence process, once you've done it, you can then start looking across to other similar processes. And it may well be that the bot that is produced can just be replicated and used almost in a very, very similar way across those other processes without having to go through a huge amount of investment. It might just need tweaking slightly because it's just replicating, I think as Janine said, large scale repetitive manual processes is where it can deliver most value most quickly, I think.
Absolutely. And the other good thing about bots is they can be stood up and stood down again. So you might want to pull your bot in to do your clearing processes for a few weeks of the year, and then you can stand them down from that process and stand them up to start automating another process. So the idea of having this kind of control room where you put your digital labor in the places where you want it to be at the particular times, which I think is really pertinent for the higher education sector, when you have the academic calendar flexing throughout the year, where you have times where you're busier and in particular areas.
Cool. Brilliant. That was it for questions. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. We've done it to the hour, or 3 minutes over. So thank you so much, Donald and Janine. And I will share the recording with everyone that came on today and with those people who couldn't make it. But yeah, from me, big thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care. Thank you. Bye.